Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show.
Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show, Friday, July the 1st, 2016, here in Midtown Manhattan, back home in New York, at least for the time being. I'm Matt Bernier. If you follow along on Twitter, at Bernier_Matt, you can kind of fire away at me whatever you'd like, opinions, thoughts, X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. If you're watching live on DRF Live, thank you for doing so. If you listen podcast version, YouTube, SoundCloud, DRF.com, we'll figure out other ways of getting it out there as well. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time. Today's going to be a short show, only got a half hour, got to catch a flight to Boston. But we got a lot to pack into a short amount of time. So 30 minutes, we'll get down to it. Knowing that we've turned the page on the Triple Crown, that's behind us now. Let's focus on the bigger things ahead. Coming up soon to Del Mar, coming up soon to Saratoga. But before we get to that point, we've got some big racing this weekend, highlighted by a couple of grade ones. But really, first and foremost, we're presented today, this week, by Woodbine, our friends up in Toronto, and they've got their biggest race of their entire meeting, or arguably one of them, if you want to put it up there with the Woodbine Mile. The Queen's Plate's going to be going on Sunday afternoon. We'll preview that race as well as two other ones, the Bashford Manor and the United Nations from Churchill Downs and from Monmouth Park. But before we get into that, let's kind of start setting the table. Everybody likes lists. Everyone likes to talk about who you like and say that you're an idiot for liking so-and-so. So no better time than to start now. Last Saturday, I was out at Santa Anita. We had the entire thing go on with the Gold Cup. You had Melatonin go out there, and he won his sort of win and you're in spot to the Breeders' Cup Classic. And now it's kind of time to turn the page and start focusing on which Breeders' Cup races these horses will be focusing on as far as their year-end goal is concerned. And I figure if we're going to start doing this sort of thing, may not be an every week segment or piece, but it'll be one of those that we'll sprinkle in, whether it's the Classic, whether it's the Distaff or the Sprint or any of those sort of divisions. But let's start off with the big one. First and foremost, the Breeders' Cup Classic. That's what most connections would be trying to point toward right now if you've got a routing horse that could possibly be as good as, if not better than, some of the top ones. 3-year-olds and up, it doesn't matter. We'll wait and see who ends up shaking down. I figured let's start it off. I've got a top 5. We'll go in reverse chronological order from 5 to 1. And we'll start off with the first one that I think is interesting, and we'll cue it up. This is Shaman Ghost on Belmont Stakes on the undercard. He ran in the Brooklyn Handicap for Jimmy Jerkins. It was his first start for him, and you see him just coming through now. Number 4, he's got the Adena Spring Silks. And he goes on and does it pretty professionally. Now, I know a lot of people are going to look at it and say, how could you put this horse as a top 5 contender for the biggest race in North America, the $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic? Mainly for me, it's a matter of we don't know what this horse's capabilities really are. This was only the second start for Jimmy Jerkins. And this is a horse, keep in mind, it wasn't that long ago. We're talking about the Queen's Plate coming up on Sunday. He's a Queen's Plate winner in his own right. He'd been gone for a long, long time, and he came back. His prep race for the Brooklyn, I thought, was very good, and it at least kind of gave you the inkling that maybe there's something else there. I thought it was a positive move that Jerkins decided to run him in that spot. I know it was a mile and a half, and maybe that's when you're going to start to get some of your, I don't want to call them lesser, but not the actual cream of the crop. You weren't running in the Met Mile, you weren't running in any of those other races, but I still think a horse like Shaman Ghost can be a major player going forward. It'll be interesting to see next Saturday at Belmont Park, the Stars and Stripes Festival. We'll find out really where Shaman Ghost stands up, because as of right now, he's supposed to be going in the Suburban, in a pretty salty rendition of the Suburban. His stablemate FNX will be back, trying to make up for that bomb down at Churchill Downs in the Stephen Foster. You'll also have a couple other big names like Mubtahi. He'll be making his, I don't want to call it a stateside debut, but his 2016 stateside debut for Kieran McLaughlin. And you've got a couple other big name runners in there as well. Eagle, it sounds like, is going to be making the trip up too. So we'll find out if Shaman Ghost can cut his teeth against some of the better sort of classic division horses that we've got at this stage in the game. And I think if he performs well, there's no reason to think that he won't go forward and be pointing toward races up at Saratoga. Maybe not the Whitney, but maybe they try to split these horses up, particularly Jerkins, where you've got two of the better ones. Maybe you try to split up FNX and Shaman Ghost and run them in Woodward, Whitney, try to kind of keep them apart. So my 5th horse, my top 5 for the Breeders' Cup Classic at the moment, is Shaman Ghost. Number 4 is Frosted. There's not a lot else to say other than, for me, this race right here in the Met Mile, as far as I'm concerned, this was one of the best races I've ever seen. Now, many of you have been involved in watching racing much longer than I have. And maybe this wasn't the greatest rendition or the greatest edition of the Met Mile. This horse just absolutely put the boots to this field. You got a 123 Beyer speed figure. I believe it's only like the 4th 120-plus Beyer in the past 10 years. Something absurd like that. You look at him, he never got out of a gallop. Rosario had the utmost confidence in him. Won by daylight, I believe it was almost 15 lengths. The question I have is, and the reason that I've only got him ranked 4th, there's a part of me that's a little bit concerned that maybe the one turn is something that he really appreciated, and that's really what kind of woke him up. I think he's more than capable at 1 1/8, but there's a part of me that thinks as the distance gets a little bit farther, I don't know that that means that he gets better. I wonder if he comes back down to earth a little bit. We saw him run over in Dubai, 2 starts back, or I should say 3 starts back, in his prep over in Dubai, the Al Maktoum Round 2. He ran very, very well. He broke the track record at 1 3/16, and then for some reason he just didn't fire in the Dubai World Cup. Hey, look, every horse can get a mulligan. That was his second start without the Lasix over there. Maybe that kind of took its toll on him. But all things considered, you've got to look at Frosted and his rebound here in the States and say, boy, he's one of the more talented horses we have. Distance is always going to be the great equalizer, and for me, I'm still a little bit dubious that maybe 10 isn't his bread and butter, and against the best of the best, maybe that can hurt him a little bit. But no doubt about it, Frosted is a quality runner, and I've got him number 4 in my top 5 for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Number 3 is Melatonin. We talked about it. I got to see him up close last Saturday in the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, and we'll take a look at that race right now. He had every right, I thought, to pack it in. He took a lot of heat at this point, and I know the fractions were not fast, but my point is, at this point, it looks like Win the Space is just going to go on with it. And this horse is super game on the inside. He's in those lime green silks for David Hoffman's, and he beat some good runners. I understand Opportunity may have been a work short of his ideal peak fitness. I understand Hard Ace is just kind of a plotter who's going to come along late, but what else do you want from a horse in Melatonin who, by the way, we talk about pedigree and how it's just a complete unknown. I mean, this horse isn't supposed to go a step past 5.5. All of a sudden, they turn him out to 10, and he's just become a monster. He's an ultimate stayer. I believe Michael Rona hit that on the head. Hoffman's done a fantastic job, and he had the EPM. That kind of threw him out of whack for a little while. They put him away for a long time. But ever since he's come back, he's tenacious. He wants to beat you. He likes 10 furlongs. He loves Santa Anita. He's got great tactical speed. He doesn't have to take the lead, but if you give it to him, he'll go on with it. Boy, for me, that checks a lot of boxes. And if you get all the big names that show up in the Breeders' Cup Classic, let's hope everyone stays healthy and sound. Aren't we talking about a horse that could kind of slip through the cracks 10, 12, 15 to 1, where you've got a horse like California Chrome, who we'll talk about. You've got possibly Beholder. You've got Frosted. You've got any of the international sorts that come over, Mubtahij. These are all horses that have got a bit of a following, and that's not including Nyquist, Exaggerate, or any of these other 3-year-olds that could blossom. Doesn't Melatonin feel like the kind of horse that could slip through the cracks and really he hasn't done anything wrong? If you want to knock the competition, I won't argue with that. He's going to need to run against better horses and beat them. But boy, I kind of look at it and say he hasn't done anything wrong, and until he proves to me that he can't do it at a big number, especially if I'm in a contest like the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, that's a horse that I'm not going to be afraid to say. I think he's every bit as good, if not better, than some of these horses. He's going to be much, much more appetizing price in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So for me, number 3, Melatonin, David Hoffman's Joe Talamo. This is where things will get interesting, because the top 2, I think a lot of people have the same top 2. For me, number 2 is California Chrome. His most recent start was in the Dubai World Cup, and he put the boots to this field. You see him on the outside. Victor gives him a quick tap on the shoulder, and the acceleration is instantaneous. You've got Mubtahij on the inside. You see the familiar silks for Godolphin and Frosted. You've got Opportunity even in behind that. But at this point, California Chrome, Art Sherman has said it in the past leading up to this race, he's a bigger, more physical, more mature specimen this year as a 5-year-old. Good on the connections, all the drama aside for bringing him back in this spot and letting him run and show us what he could possibly do as an older horse. There's one of those things. I'm not knocking his ability. I finally bought in. For the longest time, I don't feel like I gave him his due. He was a quality runner, and I just kind of poked some holes in him and said, well, he doesn't do it. He hasn't been beating fantastic competition. When he's gotten against the better of the better horses, it doesn't normally work out. It doesn't necessarily work out. He's a good animal. He's shown that time and time again, and this year particularly, he's as good as he's ever been. But the only question I have is, what's he going to do when he is encountered with some other horses that really want to be in that position? And again, it seems like they've made a concerted effort to keep him outside. They want him, not in behind horses. Let's say he breaks from the 1 hole, and he breaks sharp, don't get me wrong, but I mean, if there's some of these other horses that have good tactical speed and want to go, and he does get in behind them, it'll be interesting to see how he reacts. I think he's a quality runner. He's arguably the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but at this stage in the game, I have him number 2 behind the Super Mare Beholder. Her most recent start was at Santa Anita against the girls. I believe it was the Vanity Mile. She ran against Stellar Wind, and look, it was a beautiful performance. Stellar Wind is really good filly in her own right, but you see her right now. Victor's all over her, and Gary Stevens doesn't have Beholder out of any more than a hand ride. This is nothing more than a published workout. Again, the fractions, they went very, very slow, so she was supposed to do this. But this isn't the race that really makes me look at her as a true Breeders' Cup Classic kind of contender. I picked her in the Breeders' Cup Classic last year, and she scratched. This race here in the Pacific Classic last year, this is the one that really made me a believer that, one, the 10 furlongs is not an issue. And again, if you want to say that she's not beating anything, she's beating Opportunity and Catch a Flight, who unfortunately we don't see anymore, in Imperative, that's up to you. I'm not going to argue, and I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. This race here, right here, and you see her just drawing off hands and heels for Gary. That proves to me that she can run against the best of the best, and it feels a lot like Zenyatta. Zenyatta always had those sort of mid-high 90s, and everyone wanted to knock her. She's not fast enough. Well, guess what? When she needed to run fast enough, she did it. I think Beholder right now, for me, she's number one. Let's throw up that top five if we could. For my inaugural, my first off, as far as my top five for the Breeders' Cup Classic is concerned, I know it's early. July 1st, we still got, 4 months ahead of us, but there it is. Number 1, Beholder. 2, California Chrome. 3, Melatonin. 4, Frosted. 5, kind of the unknown, Shaman Ghost. We'll see what he can do next Saturday at Belmont Park in the Suburban Handicap. We're going to take a quick break here on the Matt Bernier Show. When we come back, we'll dive into some handicapping for this weekend. 3 big races. 1 from Churchill Downs, the Bashford Manor. 1 from Monmouth Park, the United Nations. 1 from our presenting sponsor, Woodbine, the Queen's Plate. Be back in a minute.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticket Maker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticket Maker, the exotic wagering app.
Breeders' Cup Classic. Private Zone has run a 45 flat half mile and has opened up 2.5 lengths. Private Zone's got the lead close to home and he's all by himself. Private Zone wins the Forgo.
.12:13 East Coast, 9:13 the West Coast. The Matt Bernier Show on DRF Live. We're presented by our friends up at Woodbine. Big race on Sunday in the Queen's Plate at Woodbine. We'll get into that in a minute, but it's time to get into some handicapping previews. For those of you that are unfamiliar with how we do this, more often than not, last week was a bit of an anomaly, and going forward, maybe there'll be a couple more simply because of travel schedules. But we go over 3 or 4 races on Friday. We look back the following week and say good, bad, or indifferent, and then we look at a couple more coming up. At the end of the day, we want to mix in some sports and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it is a racing show. So let's dive into it. The first race that we'll look at for this weekend, it's on Saturday night at Churchill Downs, closing night at Churchill Downs. The Bashford Manor, it's for 2-year-olds. You've got a field of 9 in here, and again, for those of you that are unfamiliar, the odds to the right of your screen, normally when you watch any of the previews that I do with Dan Illman or with Mike Beer, the odds to the right of the screen, if they do show up, those are morning line odds. These are my odds. This is my own value line, what I think each of these horses should go off at and where they may offer some value, because at the end of the day, that's what the game's all about finding value. For me, this race is fascinating because I feel like I've already used some superlatives. Where Frosted, it was one of the best races I've ever seen in his Met Mile. As far as a debut effort from a 2-year-old, at 4.5 furlongs. Now, maybe he wasn't running up against anything, but we're going to take a look right now at the debut effort from a horse called Recruiting Ready. He's breaking from the outside, and here he is, Edgar Prado, hands and heels. The best part about this race, right now you're going to see him just draw off. This race is all done. He's put this field to bed. But the fact that he just looks so professional doing so, he broke like a shot. At 4.5 furlongs, at first call, he'd opened up by 7 lengths. That doesn't happen. He's geared down, gallops out like a freight train. This is a horse, I'm fascinated by him. Fascinated by him. I talked to Gabby Gaudet the other day, and she said that Edgar Prado came back and was just beaming about this horse. And she said in the mornings he looks like a true sort of, he's very mature, put it that way. He looks like he could be anything. I was blown away by it, and again, this is a tough spot. You never know if these horses are going to regress or if they don't get the lead or anything like that. They're so lightly raced. Many of these horses have only gone out 1 time in their career. I believe the only 2-time starters, boys from Boston. I think the most likely winner of this race is Recruiting Ready. I made him 5-2. If I can get that, I'll be all over it. There's a part of me that doesn't think I'm going to because I feel like a lot of people are taken by that performance, rightfully so. But boy, I'm very excited. And there's some other good runners in that race. I mean, we can't take anything away from the Asmussen runner who won first out at 8-1. That's Tip Tap Tapazar. You got Riv, who has the highest buyer in the field coming from Arlington Park. The question there becomes, can you translate from the synthetic surface over the dirt? But boy, there's a lot of interesting runners in here. Mike Watchmaker, the Weekend Warrior, he likes the 6 U.S. Officer. I made him 6-1. I think it's a fascinating race. I love Recruiting Ready, though. I thought that debut was as good as you'll see from a 2-year-old. He was professional, he was fast, and he galloped out well. He's by Algorithms, his sire, who unfortunately we get to see what he could ultimately end up doing. He got hurt very early on in his career, but I think a fascinating runner, the 9 Recruiting Ready. That's tomorrow night at Churchill Downs, under the lights, 9 o'clock Eastern, I believe is post time. Let's move on to Sunday. 2 races on Sunday. First and foremost, let's go to Monmouth Park. It is the Grade 1 United Nations. You got a field of 10 signed down in here. They're going 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf. I've got a couple of favorites in here. I love World Approval. I'm terrified about the distance. I don't think he wants to go this far, and that's really going to be the undoing for him, in my opinion. You'll note that Noble Road, I made 99-1. We don't have a rider, and he's cross-entered. And it's no disrespect to the connections. In this field, he probably should be 99. He never would be 99-1, but he probably should be against this group because you've got some quality runners in here, led by the Chad Brown trio. You've got Wake Forest, you've got Mr. Maybe, you've got Money Multiplier. I think it's a fascinating race, and you can go so many different ways. It seems like there's quite a bit of pace signed on in there. No one has any real excuse about, if you're coming from the back of the pack, that you didn't get a setup, because I think there's plenty of speed signed on. I think a vulnerable favorite is Wake Forest. And I say that, I don't want to say tentatively, but I think he's going to go off favored, and I guess he just doesn't, in my opinion, have such an edge over the rest of the field. The 1 mile and 3/8 is going to work out perfectly for him, but I felt like in both of his 2 most recent starts, he's gotten beautiful trips. And he's just got a little bit goofy with his lead changes in the most recent start, winning the Grade 1 Man of War. I think he's got a lot of ability, but I just don't think he's got some sort of a huge edge over the rest of the field, particularly the other Chad entrants. Mr. Maybe is an unknown for me. I made him 9-2, and I got to be honest, I would probably be a little bit stingier than that. I would want probably 5 or 6-1, and I don't think I'll get that, mainly because his most recent start in March down at Gulfstream Park, I thought was pretty poor. I didn't think there was any excuse for it, but his 2 races prior to that last year, toward the end, they were just electric, and I can't help but see the difference in the 2 animals. That the one I saw run at the end of 2015. He's a major player in this race. The one I saw run his only race here in 2016, I don't think he could warm up either one of the other Chads. Money Multiplier is a fascinating horse also for Chad. The concern I have for him is ultimately where he's going to be positioned, because he wants to be forward. And again, in a race where you've got plenty of horses, Cement Clement's going to be forward, Triple Threat is likely to be forward, and he had a little bit of an excuse for his most recent start in the Manhattan. He missed the break completely. It's going to be very interesting to see how they run the race. I think the most likely winner in the race is Wake Forest, and I didn't put him on there simply because I made him 4-1, and that's only giving him a 20% chance. But I think he's a bit of a vulnerable favorite. I won't be stunned at all if he wins, but he's not for me in this race, depending on the odds. If he goes off at some big number, which I don't expect him to, maybe we rethink things, but at the end of the day, he's not for me. Title sponsor for this show, the Matt Bernier Show this week, is Woodbine Racing up in Toronto. I'll be up there in, 2 weeks now? 2 weeks' time. It'll be fun. Myself, Peter Thomas Fornatell, Jonathan Kinchin will be up there Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, all throughout, enjoying all the good racing up at Woodbine. Let's throw up one of their marquee events. It's the Canadian Kentucky Derby. It's for Canadian fold. 3-year-olds, the Queen's Plate, 1.25 miles on the Tapeta surface, a field of 13 in here. It's a very interesting race. Again, no disrespect to the connections that I've thrown 99-1 odds on, but that's the way I look at the race. That doesn't mean that they're, again, percentages don't mean that you're right or wrong if something does or doesn't happen. It's just you're trying to figure out what's the likelihood of it happening. I think the most likely winner in this race is Amy's Gizmo, and I apologize if I keep saying Amy's Gizmo or Amy's Flatter. It's Amy's Gizmo. Luis Contreras has the mount. This is a horse that hasn't done anything wrong. 5 of 6 lifetime, 5 or 6 on the synthetic surface. Really just seems to look the part of a Queen's Plate winner. The problem I have is this horse isn't particularly getting faster. And, look, maybe you don't need to be any faster than what this horse has been running to get the job done here. But at the same time, I want to shop around a little bit. 7-2 are the odds that I pegged on him. And I don't know that I'm going to get 7-2. I think he goes shorter than that. I want to take a shot against him. I think a live long shot is the 12 Scholar Athlete. Coming up, 4 West Point Thoroughbreds, 4 Grand Motion. Jose Ortiz has got the mount. I was blown away. I thought it was a really good effort at Belmont Park in the most recent start. I know it was on the turf. First time blinkers started, kicked down the lane very, very nicely. He's a big number on the morning line. I believe he's 12. I made him 9-1 simply because there's a lot of speed signed on in this race. I think he's a live long shot, though, that you want to keep an eye on, the 12 Scholar Athlete. I think the most likely winner is Amy's Gizmo, but I'm not picking either one of them. If I had to make a pick for this race, and unfortunately I've got to get out of here, so there isn't any sort of a preview for me from yesterday or today, this is going to serve as my preview. My pick is the filly. I think the 13 Gamble's Ghost, drawn on the far outside. She's going to come from off the pace. She had a hellacious trip in the Woodbine Oak. She was so much the best in there. From a fig standpoint, she is going to need to improve, but she's not that far off of them already. I made her 9-2. I think she's going to get a beautiful trip in this spot. Take her back, make the run. 9-2 up, I'm going to be interested in playing Gamble's Ghost, but again, I think a live long shot is the 12 Scholar Athlete, and I think the most likely winner of the Queen's Plate is the 10 Amy's Gizmo. So again, 3 races this weekend: the Bashford Manor, the United Nations, the Queen's Plate. We'll recap all of those next Friday on the show, as well as go over some of the big racing for Stars and Stripes Festival at Belmont Park. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up here on the Matt Bernier Show, presented by Woodbine Racing. We'll go over the weekend slate, show you what's coming up on DRF Live tomorrow for Dan Illman and Mike Beer. We'll go over the video of the week, which is just an absurd from another form of racing. And then we'll also give you the Formulator Race of the Day for Friday from Hastings Park. Stay with us.
Say goodbye to your inner caveman. If you're making caveman bets on pick sixes, you could be leaving money on the table. DRF Bets Ticketmaker helps you build more profitable exotic bets and place them with one click. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticketmaker. Be a samurai with your ROI. DRF Bets Ticketmaker helps you cut out unprofitable exotic bets before they happen and be the master of profits. Raise your game with DRF Bets Ticketmaker, the exotic wagering app.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Private Zone has run a 45 flat half mile and has opened up 2.5 lengths. Private Zone's got the lead close to home, and he's all by himself. Private Zone wins the Forgo.
12:24 in the East, 9:24 in the West. Matt Bernier Show on DRF Live, presented by Woodbine Racing. Again, the Queen's Plate is coming up on Sunday. Big day of racing up at Woodbine, and we'll be up there in 2 weeks to go over some things and just kind of enjoy the racing and whatnot. If you're new to the show, this is normally how we wrap things up here on DRF Live or via podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, DRF.com, however you listen to it, ESPN.com. The weekend preview, this is kind of what's on deck tomorrow for DRF Live starting at 4 o'clock Eastern. You'll find Dan Illman and Mike Beer in here for the entire duration. A lot of big things happening at Prairie Meadows. You've got some good stuff at Woodbine, some graded stakes, as well as a couple other graded races as well, whether it's Belmont Park, whether it's Monmouth. Gulfstream has got the Summit of Speed. Santa Anita's got a 5-horse graded stakes race. So a lot of good stuff up tomorrow. DRF Live starting at 4 o'clock Eastern. Again, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, they'll bring you through the entire day, right through the affirmed handicap at Santa Anita. Again, if you're new to the show, we normally wrap things up with a video of the week. It can be something absurd or stupid or fun or whatever. This falls into the absurd and stupid one from a different form of racing. This is from NASCAR. I believe this is the Truck Series. I don't even know what they call it anymore as far as the sponsors are concerned. These guys wrecked each other and then they went at it.
Exchanging words, and they're going at it. This is going to be good. John West Townley and Spencer Gallagher down there in turn 1. John West.
Now, my favorite part of the entire thing, one, it was like it was a terrible hockey fight where there was just a lot of clinching, a lot of nonsense. My favorite part, Mike, if you could roll it back, wait for the DDT. Wait for it. Wait right here. Right now. Certainly a wrestling fan. I remember the move from my days back, 10, 11 years old when The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin were still wrestling. But that, again, there's a difference. I used to race. Fun fact, I used to race cars before I got here, before any of this stuff started. You get frustrated. You get heated. You yell at each other occasionally. You don't do that, especially if you're at some sort of major level of it. You don't act like I can't say what, but you don't act like an idiot. So that's the race, that's the video of the week anyway this week. Comes from a different form of racing. Bunch of idiots just doing their thing, wrecking each other. That's fine. Hopefully they made up and they'll be back at it sometime this week, next week, whenever their next truck race is. Who knows? For the rest of this show, we've only got a couple minutes left. We'll tee it up. Not only are we going to show you the formulated race of the day for Friday, which is tonight at Hastings Park. It's Lieutenant Governor's Handicap. We also have a Pick 4 video up on the website, video.drf.com. Myself and Illman, we went over that earlier in the week. You're going to want to take a look at that. But until next Friday, I'm going to head out of here. I got to go to John F. Kennedy International and get out of here. But safe and happy 4th of July weekend for everyone. Don't do anything stupid. I don't want to hear stories about Jason Pierre-Paul blowing off your hand. When we come back next Friday, we'll go over these 3 races for better or for worse. We'll preview the big races coming up Saturday afternoon at Belmont Park for the Stars and Stripes Festival. But until then, enjoy the weekend. Best of luck this weekend. The Matt Bernier Show presented by Woodbine. Here it is, the formulated race today for Friday from Hastings Park.